Hey all, I'm Matt, the host of Big Forest Trail Map podcast. On Trail Map, we explore the winding, unconventional paths that people take to build meaningful lives and work. Each episode, I sit down with someone who's forging their own way. Entrepreneurs, chefs, scientists, athletes, and more. To hear about the decisions that shaped them, the challenges they faced, and the unexpected turns along the way. You'll hear stories of grit, reinvention, and resilience, plus some fun, surprising, and amazing moments along the way. Whether you're charting your own course or just love a good story, I hope you'll join me on the journey. Trail Map is part of Big Forest, a business that I started to support people who are on their way to building amazing businesses, careers, and lives. Big Forest offers leadership and professional coaching to anyone dealing with current and unresolved issues in their careers, whether that's feeling disconnected with values and purpose, navigating challenging circumstances and relationships, or trying to build new things. Please visit bigforest.llc to schedule a complimentary 30-minute meet and greet to find out if coaching is right for you. Hey, Pat, how you doing?
Hi, Matt.
How are things?
Great. How are you?
Doing well. We had a little bit of a COVID encounter in the last week, but everybody's feeling better. And happy to be here with you.
I'm very happy to be here with you. Sorry about that. COVID.
Yeah, COVID's back. It never left.
Yeah, it's true.
What have you been up to these last few days?
I've been working on our album, doing some recording, preparing for Mary's 40th birthday this weekend.
Huge.
Sheesh.
Huge.
Big
What are you
stuff.
going to do?
We're having a little staycation in New York City.
Nice.
Which is a city near where we live.
Heard of it.
And we're lucky to have the grandparents here.
Yeah. That's great. That'll be fun.
With the dog.
I was just in New York. Actually, that's where, it's not where the COVID came from, but it's where we all got the COVID. And had a great visit in New York, and then ended up having to head back home to recover. And we were celebrating my father-in-law's 90th birthday.
Wow.
And just had we ended up having like over a week here with him, which was a real gift.
Nice.
He's 90 years at this point. He's lived through a lot. And just like hearing his stories of the Korean War and stuff was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw you sent me some pictures. Looked like you guys had an awesome time. That's what you get for having an awesome time. You get COVID.
Yeah. When you've got COVID and no one wants to see you, you get to spend a lot of time. If you're lucky enough to have it with some people you love, get to spend a lot of quality time with those people.
That's the trick.
You did a lot of cooking. I'm really loving cooking right now. It's just such a fun, creative outlet. The dishes part sucks. Jen and I think often about your and Mary's "You Cook and You Clean" song.
Should I do a verse?
Yeah, let's hear it.
We have two versions of it, but the original version was, it's like you cook and then you clean, and then you cook and then you clean, and then you cook and then you clean, and then you sleep and then you wake, and then you cook and then you clean. The counterpoint to that, my attitude that I always try to return to now about dishes, is that can be a very mindful practice, because you know exactly what needs to be done. And there's a satisfaction in that. Sometimes it's unclear what needs to be done. And that's a whole.
You mean in life generally, or with dishes?
Yeah. In all sorts of other situations. But dishes, folding laundry, just trying to take pleasure in those things, because it's like walking purposefully,
Today, I feel like, without intending to go there, found ourselves in the kitchen here in this conversation. And today we've got a conversation with a chef, Rahul Khopkar, who we'll let him introduce himself as we do. But I'm curious about his relationship with doing dishes.
Do you think he even has to do them anymore?
I don't think so. I think that's maybe one of the things that you achieve with a certain amount of culinary fame. Anywho, so I guess let's move on with the episode, huh?
It's time.
All right. We're very excited to have Rahul Khopkar here today, calling in from LA. Great to have you here, man. I've known Rahul for a while, met through a high school friend. So it's great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. This is going to be fun.
Well, I guess to start things off, would you mind doing a little introduction of yourself?
My name is Rahul Khopkar. I was born in Manhattan. I grew up just outside of Boston in Wellesley, Massachusetts. My mom is Korean. My dad's Indian. I took a somewhat circuitous route to end up cooking. It's been about 20 years now. Started cooking in Wellesley, moved to Los Angeles, cooked out here for a little while, went to culinary school up in Napa Valley, came back to LA and cooked a little bit, then cooked back up in Napa Valley for a little while. And then I went over to Europe and I worked in Denmark for a little bit. And then came back here and in 2015 opened Ramen Hood, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years.
What is Ramen Hood for those that don't know?
Ramen Hood, it's a vegan ramen shop here in downtown Los Angeles. I'm not vegan, but my business partner and I kind of felt like we could make vegan food better than vegan people could. And I would say so far we have. But yeah, that is Ramen Hood in a nutshell.
Yeah. And having gone to Ramen Hood, I can attest that it's probably the best ramen I've ever had. And I didn't miss the meat or the egg.
Matt, I would just like to interject here and say, how dare you not have told me about Ramen Hood prior to my trip to Los Angeles in June?
You were out here?
Yes. I'd never been to Union Station. It's beautiful. And it was right when there was the Pride Parade and they were sending the National Guard. But if I had known your restaurant was right there, I would have gone there for lunch that day. Sure, I will when I go back.
Next time. Well, Rahul, it's awesome to have you on the show. Can you take us back to your earliest food memory? It sounds like it was in Wellesley.
There's all these like funny stories my mom has about me being a kid where she was always kind of like making a point of exposing me to a wide variety of foods. And there were times where it was like problematic. For a while, like when she and my dad were working for UNICEF would pay for you to fly to your second home. So our second home was in India, and you could book business trip tickets and everything. And I think one of the first times I flew in like coach or economy, like the food came and I was like standing on the seat next to my mom, and I was just like, where's the smoked salmon? Like there's all these stories floating around like that. Like I think we were in Corsica and I ordered spaghetti, and I was just like, why does this pasta sauce taste like ketchup? There's all sorts of stuff, or I was maybe like somewhere in Italy, maybe near Pisa. I don't remember, but there's all these stories like that floating around. I think like one of my earliest food memories though, and it's like very apropos for what I'm doing now, is I used to come home from school and our grandmother was living with us at the time, and she and I would sit down and have a bowl of ramen together after school. And so I definitely remember that growing up. But food was always like an important thing in our family. Like we would sit down together and eat dinner as a family for as long as I remember. And I know especially in high school, that was kind of not the norm for a lot of kids. I had friends whose families were kind of like everybody was on a different eating schedule, especially for dinner. And there was no sense of getting together and doing that. And so I definitely, have strong memories surrounding food because of that, and definitely understand like the convivial nature of eating. And for me, that's like a really big thing. I do really enjoy sitting down with other people and eating. Like if we're going to hang out and do something, my first thought's always like, oh, we should go eat something. Yeah. So.
I totally relate to that. And I think food has an amazing power to just disarm everybody and put everybody on the same page. Like you're having the same experience. Pat, did you have family dinners growing up too?
Yeah, we did. It is one of those things that it's sort of like, if there was something that I wanted people to get back to, that would be what eating together is one that I think is such a micro community building tradition. I know that it still is a thing in other countries and other cultures now. I think it's just become so easy to eat something that's quick that you can just pull out of the freezer, or you can just get something to go.
Totally agree. I was in San Sebastian in Spain, probably 2015 or something, and there was a research project going on by IDEO, the design firm, and they were studying Spanish food culture. And specifically in the Basque region, people of all generations get together once a week and they cook and then they kind of experience the meals together. I think that's such a powerful practice. It sort of forces you away from your phone or away from whatever you might be looking at otherwise. Rahul, what is your first memory or early memories around starting to cook yourself?
Not my memory, but when I was very little, I was apparently like I was always very fascinated with it. And when we were living in India, like everybody has help. It's just kind of how the place works. And so we had a cook, and I was always interested in like what they were doing, and I was trying to help them make some chapatis, and I fell off the stool, and the cook grabbed my arm, and it actually broke my arm. He was trying to like catch me and broke my arm. And I was a baby at the time. I was just like getting to a point where I was standing. I think I must have been, I don't know, like 1 or something like that. But I had so much baby fat that like my parents didn't know the arm was broken for a couple days. I was just, that was a whole thing because, you know, you're in India, it's like not necessarily the best care. So my arm was set crooked and then had to be rebroken. So I spent like 9 months in a cast at one point. But I don't know, earliest memories of cooking, I was always kind of curious about it. And I've always worked in and around food. I worked for Whole Foods for about a decade. And so there was always some food knowledge happening with that. And I think probably at Whole Foods where I saw, especially when I was working up in Portland, Maine, that store had an open kitchen where people could come up and order food that was cooked all on the minute. And that's kind of where I was like, oh, that could be kind of a cool, different job to do. When I moved back to Wellesley, that was where I kind of decided I wanted to try to get a job doing that and transition into something else.
You already sort of alluded to it, but being from like a mixed race family and like your mom's Korean roots, your dad's Indian roots, like how do you think about your sort of cultural background and heritage in terms of food? Like, does that play a role in the way that you think about food or the way you think about flavor?
When cooking, I definitely lean towards Korean flavors a lot. I think they're a lot more approachable for people. There's like kind of a better understanding, I guess, about it. And then with the Indian food, I love Indian food. I'm pretty particular about it. I think that there's a lot of Indian food in this world that is whitewashed. Indian food's one of those weird things where if you really dive into it, you look at what the British did to the food, and then you look at things where vindaloo is actually a Portuguese influenced dish. Within India, India's regionality is so insane and intense that the food differs within the country greatly. And I don't pull from Indian food that often. We have a dish at the restaurant now that uses pani puri as like a vehicle, and I think that's a great vehicle, and we've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years now. But I don't know. I think personally I don't pull from Indian food that much because it's a little bit hard to incorporate some of the flavors depending on what I'm doing. But there are certain techniques that are really useful, like frying aromatics in oil before you put the rest of your ingredients in. But yeah, I also feel less comfortable cooking Indian food. I just don't have as much experience doing it. If I'm making something, I want it to be a close facsimile in terms of flavor, and I don't necessarily trust myself to get it there. A large part of it is how you respect like the food that you are making and the culture that it's coming from, and then what you're outputting. And there's some places out here that do fusion Indian food, for instance, where I'm just like, fuck you guys. Like, you're not respecting where you came from, and the food you're making isn't very good. Like, you've completely gone down a rabbit hole of like being trendy and making food for one type of person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to look at that.
I'm curious, how did you decide to make your restaurant vegan? If you're not
So
vegan, right?
I'm not vegan. So
Yeah.
my friend and business partner, Alon, I was working in Copenhagen at the time, and he called me, and he had a very meat centric restaurant, and was getting a lot of flack on Twitter from vegans about that. And he'd already kind of had this idea to do a vegan concept. And I was already kind of in this mind frame of doing a lot of vegetable forward stuff because of where I was working. And he asked me if I was planning to come back to LA, and I was. And so we started talking about what we could do. We originally wanted to do a vegan version of this concept called Noodle World that exists out here, which Noodle World is exactly what you think it would be. It's noodles from all over the world. It's organized by country. We kind of wanted to do a vegan version of that. And as we were talking about it, it became a little more tricky based on the amount of space we had to work with. And so we kind of dialed it down to just ramen. And so I think not being vegan, doing it is an advantage in a lot of ways, because just like with memories, you start to forget the way things taste over time. And the number of vegan products I eat where people are like, it tastes exactly like the real thing.
Like, nah,
It's
dude.
been a very long time since you've had the real thing, because this does not taste anything like it.
Have you come across the concept of like you find a vegan restaurant? You know, this might not be the case in places like LA, but like I travel around a lot. You see a vegetarian or a vegan restaurant, and it's like 4.8 on Google or whatever. And you go, and it's like, that's because it's the vegan restaurant, and people
Yeah.
are so grateful that it exists at all. And
Yeah.
it's not really about like, is this food really good?
Yeah, that does happen. And I mean, I give the vegan community a lot of credit. They are very supportive. But yeah, I've definitely experienced that. I had a bowl of ramen at a new spot in Little Tokyo out here and tried the vegan ramen, and that was terrible. But
It's usually an afterthought in my experience. I'm a pescatarian. I eat fish. But
okay.
like, sometimes it hits, and I really appreciate it, but it's almost always an afterthought if they do a vegetarian or a vegan ramen.
There's real science involved too, because like, I mean, if you go to Ramen Hood, like there is an egg in your ramen. It's just a vegan egg, right, Rahul?
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the vegan egg is kind of a funny story. We felt like we had to have something to mimic the egg. And so when we first started, it didn't take us that many iterations to get what we wanted out of it. But when we first opened, we were making the vegan egg out of locally produced soy milk. And it's actually surprising how hard it is to find unsweetened soy milk that doesn't have some sort of other flavor additive to it. But we were making it out of soy milk, and we were spherifying the yolk. And
Like you do.
yeah, it was this whole thing. We were buying like this yolk mixture from this guy who the yolk mixture already had. I'm actually forget the two components. It's been so long since you'll understand why. But so we were stirring this yolk and the whole thing, and it was cool because the yolk would pop, but like we'd have to keep the yolks frozen, and then you have to put them in this bath with I don't know, like sodium citrate or something like that, and wash it around and the whole thing. And people really liked it, but like the yolk lacked this like the fattiness that a true yolk would have. And so I think I was actually back home a couple years. It was like 2 years after we opened, and there was a Wagamama there. And I was kind of surprised that Wagamama had opened up there. And I noticed that these fuckers had ripped us off and stole our vegan egg, and we're making like the vegan egg. And I was like, Alana and I are talking. I'm like, what the fuck? And I looked at this thing, and I was kind of just like, oh, their yolk is a vegan mayonnaise base. And I thought about it, and I'm like, that gets you like the fatty nature of what you kind of want out of the yolk, but you don't have this popping yolk. And so then we ripped them off
I was
backwards.
gonna say you stole back. That's good.
Yeah, we switched to a vegan yolk, which simplified our lives in a lot of way.
I mean, the egg is such a crucial part of the ramen. You gotta know.
Yeah. And I mean, you put black salt in, and the yolk mixture tastes like yolk. I feel like there's a lot of things in food where it's about, can you trick somebody's brain into thinking a certain way about something, as opposed to like it necessarily being identically the same thing.
Has cooking vegan for this many years influenced your own diet?
Not really. I would say though, I eat less red meat than I ever have before. I don't do that much dairy I mean, I had burnt grilled cheese the other night, but it's like I don't do that much dairy anymore. But no, I still am kind of in this boat of you have to maintain flavor profiles, and it's hard to do that if you start eliminating things. Alon, my business partner, has definitely gone vegan at times.
I know that Alon is Alon Hall, and he was Top Chef winner in the, I think, early days of Top Chef.
Yeah, season 2.
Which is pretty rad that you've built this relationship with somebody like him. And I know you talk about your time working in Copenhagen. You know, I know that was at Noma, which is one of the top restaurants in the world. I think has 3 Michelin stars. So you've had some like real brushes with fame in the food space. How do you think about that? I mean, are these just people that you're collaborating with, or is the fame they've achieved on your radar at all?
Alon and I joke about his fame all the time because it's not really like that's. I mean, he is famous, and it is the way his fame manifests itself is very funny and like entertaining, and like he has fun with it. So it's a really positive thing. And there's all these funny stories about like every time his season of Top Chef gets released in another country, he gets like hit with all these DMs of people being like, "You were a bully," like all this stuff. But no, it's opportunity to do anything. I think with anybody who has any form of profile that's pretty substantial in the culinary world is important. I mean, like most things, it's what you make out of your experience, right? And what your mindset is. Like if you go into things thinking that you know everything, like it's never a good, I think in every industry, it's never a good way to operate, but especially in creative industries. And I had a chef instructor in culinary school tell me that cooking was like climbing a mountain where you never reach the top. There's always something to be learned. And I think that it's the opportunity is the biggest thing. And then what you make of it from there is your choice. Sometimes it's just being in the same room as somebody and hearing them talk about something is like a big enough thing versus actually having an opportunity to like cook alongside them is a different thing,
I mean, we've mentioned you being in Copenhagen, Noma, a couple times, and I think you said you were in wine country in California at some point in your career. As a layperson, my mind from those things go to, and tell me how annoying this question is. Have you seen The Bear?
Yeah. I have not watched the 4th season.
Okay.
I mostly. Oh, well, here, ask your question, and then I'll give you my shtick.
Well, that question at all, just bringing up The Bear, does that annoy you, or can we go further?
We can go further.
Okay. My friend who had worked in some kitchens in various capacities was surprised that I really loved the show. And I was like, what do you mean? It's a very interesting show about human relationships that happens to take place in the kitchen, and also kind of gives you a window on how maybe the dynamics work. And I'm curious if you feel like it gives any kind of a realistic window onto like how different kinds of actual cooking environments or relationships are, or if it's sort of just like Hollywood and an annoying distraction to you, or somewhere along that spectrum. Maybe.
So I will say this, like everything, it is entertainment.
Sure.
So its realism is capped by a necessity of that. Much like how, I don't know if either of you watched the show The Offer about the making of The Godfather.
Oh yeah.
It's great, but like all my friends out here who are producers are like, it's entertaining. The reality of that show is not the real reality of things. As far as The Bear goes, that show lost me in the 7th episode of season 1, where it's like that one giant cut and like Carmen gets locked in the walk-in. Like I've never been in a walk-in that hasn't had some way of releasing the door, whether it's like a physical mechanic or like an axe on the wall so you can cut your way out of it. And then I have problems with some of the characters, and they're most notably Io Debris' character, I think, is just like really poorly written. I would have hired her and fired her the same day. And it's just really poorly written. And in terms of like a character, like people like that, in I mean, maybe today because things have shifted, but like people like that wouldn't survive where I've worked, like at all. Just they're not like they're not exuding the mental fortitude required to
You don't
do
think she had mental fortitude?
no, no, I don't. Like all the whining, like thinking about quitting, it's like no, like when you're in the shit, you dig in and you push back, you don't complain. Like it's that is a lot of what I get out of her character in a lot of situations. A lot of people feel the way you feel about that character. They really like her. I'll tell you who I really like. There's two interesting things. One, I forget the guy who plays the pastry chef, but he's based on somebody that I used to work with at Noma, actually. So it was kind of cool to see Malcolm's story told like a different way. You know whose arc in that show is actually dead on and really well done? Cousin Richie's. Because
Yeah.
there are tons of people who go through this transformation from one experience where, you know, before they were doing fuck all and whatever, and then they have this opportunity and it truly transforms them because they've drank the Kool-Aid, they bought into the system, whatever it was, and they come out the other side. And the most impressive thing to me is the way they nailed the irrational sense of confidence that can be built from working at like really high-end places where it's like, I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not scared and I'll go do it and it's going to be okay. Or I'll figure it out as I'm doing it, or like I'll push back and I'll get it done. The thing, it's like if you look at the contrast between his character and what his character is capable of and that arc versus her character and what she's doing. And granted, I haven't seen season 4. They are light years apart, and like one of them gets it and the other one it's like a character that's there because it's truly a foil character and not necessarily like an accurate representation, I feel like.
Okay, well, when I come back to Los Angeles and I do come to the restaurant, we can drink a beer and we can get really into the weeds about this even more so.
I would love to. I'll watch season 4 by then so we can talk about it because I only watch a show because people want to talk about it. I'm like,
Yeah. So is it annoying to you, just its existence, kind of?
no, like it doesn't bother me that it exists. I think that it was an inevitable like outcome of the way food media has gone over all these years that there would be something like this eventually, but I just don't. It doesn't service me in any way, I guess is the way to put it.
Okay.
Well, it's your life. So I guess there's a interesting tension here, right? Where like, so we were just talking about these chefs who have achieved some level of fame that you're working with. You've achieved some level of fame and notoriety through your own work. I think it's an interesting juxtaposition between from what I understand, the work in a kitchen is like, it's hard work. It's like hard, long hours, grunt work. Like you've been doing this for many years, it's tiring. And then there's also like this small percentage of chefs that have gotten famous for that sort of grunt work. And so I guess there's a lot of romance, and maybe it started with like Anthony Bourdain or somebody in the food industry who's made it cool to be a chef. I guess any thoughts on that?
It was probably like 20 years ago where it started to get glamorized because of things like Top Chef and media.
Well, Anthony Bourdain's book too, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he definitely, but why am I blanking on the name of his
Kitchen Confidential?
Yeah, but Kitchen Confidential came out in like the 90s, didn't it?
Something like, late 90s.
Anthony Bourdain is an incredible storyteller, and he definitely played a large role in making it feel accessible and did a good job of showing both sides of the industry.
I've never worked in a restaurant. I actually started a business that was based in the back of a restaurant. And so we were working side by side with the restaurant staff. And there's like a spirit to the restaurant space that I love. There's a resilience, creativity, just like, a figure shit out type mentality that is inspiring. And there are a lot of good people that care about giving good food experiences to customers. And so whether or not it's captured by media, I think that's worth calling out. And I know it's hard. There's a major talk track around like teachers not getting paid enough. I think the same is true of restaurant workers. Like they work really, really hard to feed people and they don't get paid enough.
You did mention Cousin Richie from The Bear. I feel like he has an epiphany in the show that like his role in all of it is to be the bringer together of people. It's to like
Yeah.
be like providing experience. And that was always kind of the role he played from the beef stand in the beginning or whatever. But like that goes back to what we all said at the top, sitting down and having family dinner. Like it's a thing, it's a human thing, and it always has been. And now that's a role that restaurants and
Yeah.
whatever concentric circle of the food industry you want to include in it, but that's a role that it can still play.
Yeah, that part of his character's mentality is definitely like a very high-end restaurant thing. I have a story about going to 11 Madison Park that kind of has one of those moments to it. I was with my mom and they served a mini eggs Benedict course, quail eggs and this whole thing. And as they're clearing the table, my mom kind of leaned over to me and very quietly was like, "Oh, I wish we could have that again." And there was a lot of setup. It took like 3 people to drop everything for one person. And they do coordinated drops for all the plating. And a few minutes passes and we're talking and the captain comes back over and is just like, "This is one of those moments of be careful what you wish for." And they just dropped the course again because my mom had made this like very quiet comment to me about it.
Yeah. In terms of your own motivation, does the hospitality piece of restaurants motivate you? Or is your focus really more on the food? Or do you see a disconnect between those two pieces at all?
In a lot of ways, that's kind of like the whole front of the house, back of the house thing.
Yeah.
I'm very much about the food. I like if we're kind of like notoriously rude at Ramen Hood, not like it's just like
Like the hot dog stand in Chicago where they yell at you.
it's not on a level. I think that if Ramen Hood was not where it is located, I'd put more effort into the hospitality side of things. But for me, cooking has always been, the return has always been like somebody eating the food and liking it. It's like anybody can go anywhere, no matter how nice it is, and decide to have a bad experience if they want. So there's only so much you can control in the end.
I've thought about that, just like the busy space that you're in Grand Central Market and the challenge of you can't really control the experience. And I guess that's probably true that you can't control it even at a fancy restaurant. If somebody comes in a bad mood, they're going to be in a bad mood. And that's a hard thing to change.
If I've learned anything from being in that market, it's that you can't control everything. I had been cooking back home and then I came out here and I was cooking on the side, just make money. And I found that I was like pretty inherently talented at it. And there was real gratification. And especially like when I worked for Alon at his restaurant, the Gorbals, we had this chef counter. There was real gratification in making something and then putting it down in front of somebody and them trying it and seeing their reaction and enjoying it.
There is a direct pipeline in cooking. It's just like, I made this thing right over here and here you go and here it is. And you're putting it right into your body right now.
Yeah.
That feedback.
The feedback. And
no, I agree. Return on what you're doing is almost immediate, which is nice. I was going to comment on what you said about that notion of like hitting it big as a chef. I think the industry is a little interesting because the physicality of it makes it so that you have to think of an exit strategy because it's not something you can do forever, right? Like if you have an office job, you'll have your own problems sitting in a chair for like 40 years, but you can sit in a chair for 40 years. It's not that demanding on your body. In this game, it's like you have to have an exit strategy. The only way out really is to go in deeper. Having one restaurant's never really going to get you out. You have to have more than one restaurant. It has to be more headache, more like you have to keep adding. And then eventually maybe you get to a point where you have enough people to run it for you.
And I mean, doesn't that necessarily pull you away from the singular task of cooking? If you're having to manage like 5-10 restaurants, like you're not.
Absolutely. Even with my one place, like my job is not cooking anymore. It's mostly psychology and teaching, right? Because I can make a new dish and whatever, and everything I make is designed to be very easy for my guys to do because that's just what it has to be. But like teaching them how to do it is one aspect of it. But then having people who work for you, like teaching critical thinking is very difficult, I've learned. And also just kind of getting people to kind of think about things in a similar way as you. It can be very tricky.
In any field.
No, this is like these are universal.
Yeah.
But a lot of management over time is really comes down to teaching and psychology. It's not so much about doing what you initially wanted to be doing.
Another dimension of it is you hear the stats about like 50% of restaurants fail in their first year or their first 2 years. I don't know what the actual number is, but you guys are 10 years deep here. Like you must be doing something right.
We're 10 years deep, but this is not a great place to own a small business. LA does not care about small business.
How so?
I was in Japan in 2020 to go to an F1 race, and we were at just some like little bar sitting there talking to the guy who owned it, and he was just like, oh yeah, like one of the first things the Japanese government did was they subsidized all small businesses like immediately. It was like no questions asked. LA is one of these cities where it's like you have an alphabet soup of agencies that all want money from you for different things that like are redundant, unnecessary. Labor here is very expensive. You get taxed on pretty much everything. The way people eat out here, they're more interested in going to places that are like part of a large restaurant group that are big and flashy than like supporting mom and pop stuff.
But so you guys are, despite that, you're still doing it.
We're still doing it. We only have a couple years left on our lease. Our lease is up in 27. We'll reevaluate as we get closer to that. But yeah, I mean, rent's high. It's a grind, yeah.
I know we're coming up on time here, and Rahul, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us and chatting a bit. It's obvious that the restaurant business is a tough one. It's a lot of hard work, but I also know that the product that you guys have put out there for 10 years is a really good one that's given a lot of people a lot of joy. So it's a grind, but I know your work is appreciated.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here. It's always fun talking with you guys.
Thank you so much, and good luck. We'll be watching what you do next, and good luck with everything.
I'll holler at you next time.
Let me know next time you're in LA. We can go eat. It'll be great.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, cool.
All right. See you guys.
Right.
It was cool to chat with Rahul Khopkar about his journey. I felt like we had a whole maybe offshoot podcast opportunity to do like episode by episode reviews of The Bear.
Oh my God. I'm going to start that podcast if you don't mind. It was interesting to me that he really didn't like the one shot episode, which was one of my favorite episodes.
I enjoyed that episode also. I would describe the feeling afterwards. I think I was a bit stressed out by the end of it.
For sure. Yeah.
Nonstop.
I mean, I was just asking him about it to see. I fully expected him to be like, that show sucks, or like, I don't. So it's just interesting to hear what he had to say.
It was cool to have him on. It just strikes me, and this is not a new thought, but like the restaurant business is really hard and it's glorified, but it's hard.
Right. I think there's a lot of the visible part of the iceberg. It's easy to be like, wow, that's cool. And I think that's true for a lot of different industries, and certainly including the restaurant and hospitality industry. And that's what was interesting about the show. We can stop talking about the show. But just, to me, it was like, it's very impressive that they've had this restaurant in downtown LA for 10 years. And like, there's so much hard work and just like,
yeah,
that would be hard to even convey much work they've done.
Yeah. Well, I think about the visible part of the iceberg for us. And it's like making dinner at home.
Right.
And even making dinner at home, God, the dishes, the like,
we forgot
shopping.
To ask him about if he does dishes anymore. We forgot to ask him.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a lot. It's so much work. And then just thinking about making the same stuff it's just, I don't know. Like I was alluding to, I did some work in the back of a restaurant at one point in my career. And like, I think the people who have worked in hospitality are like just it's an incredible group of people that really care deeply about the experience of customers, have a great deal of patience. And so Rahul was talking about the sort of way he gives it back to customers a little bit. And I'm like, dude, you're making the same food for people every day. Like that's your right.
Yeah.
You can give it back
I feel like if you can hone that vibe like a little bit, hey, yo, hey. Like,
yeah.
People appreciate that.
Yeah. But, you know, we didn't talk about this, but like the reviews for restaurants, it's really problematic. Like, I don't know if you've seen Ratatouille, but like it
Sure.
used to be that
Watched it
like,
recently.
yeah, it used to be that like restaurants would worry about the incognito New York Times restaurant reviewer coming in and like having a bad meal. And now it's like every single customer who has the power to like
Right.
post a review.
It's
And
basically Black Mirror. Like
yeah,
everybody's just filming everything.
yeah, yeah. Which is that's tough. That's a grind. But
Yeah. So you've been to his restaurant, and one thing I meant to ask him about, which we really didn't talk about that much, was the vegan egg. Did you have that?
yeah.
How, is
I mean, it
great?
looks exactly like an egg.
Wow.
It looks like half an egg.
Yeah.
Like it's cut in half.
Sliced egg.
Sliced. Yeah, and it was a very equivalent experience to like eating an egg.
Just the whole concept really excites me because having been a vegetarian,
Yeah,
or a pescatarian for 10 years. So much vegetarian or vegan food is like an afterthought. And it's been growing in that time. I think it's been getting much easier to eat like legit food.
Have you had vegan eggs?
Yeah, but I think I had them like early on and I was like, and even, like the texture and the flavoring of everything has gotten better in the last 10 years. I think it has.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely worth trying to get out there to try it at some point if you're out there for music or whatever.
Next time I'm in LA.
Yeah. And it's right in Grand Central Market, which is, it's a busy food market.
Yeah.
And it's a fun experience. And, they've been doing it for a long time and they're really good at it. And ramen's delicious. Good time of year for ramen.
Yeah. Although I'll have soup anytime. We have a good place near us here now that we go whenever Mary and I have a lunch opportunity. We're like, let's just go there.
Yeah. No, actually, we had pho. We had pho and ramen last night at my house. We ordered takeout from a local place here that we love.
Nice.
So
I love a bustling downtown market too. Have you ever been to the one in Philadelphia? I forget what it's called right now.
I don't think
just
so.
like indoor, lots of little stalls. Is that what Grand Central Market in LA is like?
Yeah.
What about the Ferry Building in San Francisco? Where would you put that?
Yeah, it's like Ferry Building in San Francisco. Is Chelsea Market like that in New York?
Chelsea Market, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this one in Philadelphia that I'm thinking about is a little more crowded and bustling. It's like, like Chelsea Market's like, we're in a market. We just went shopping.
Posh.
Yeah.
Posh. What are you cooking at home right now?
Actually, Eamon, my 9-year-old son, just learned to make ramen. Mary gave him a book called How to Be a Person, which we kind of want to give to everyone we know. But it's got all manner of just like basic life skills. And one of the things was how to make ramen from a packet of dry noodles, put in all sorts of mushrooms and vegetables, and made it for the family for dinner. He was so proud and it was so great. How to be a person. And then he made it a second time and it kind of sat for a while. So the noodles got a little soggy.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of sad and disappointing. But now we got to psych him back up again.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's never, it won't be the same every time. That's the other thing about the restaurant business is like you're trying to make it basically, you're trying to bring together the specialness of like, but most people don't go here all the time. It's like a special thing.
Right.
But like you're trying to do the same thing over and over again.
Totally. Well, it was fantastic. Pat, thank you again for joining the episode. And it was great to chat with Rahul and looking forward to the next conversation.
That is always a pleasure. And when I go and eat the vegan egg, we can compare the notes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If we're ever in LA together, we could do a live episode with Rahul.
That'd be great.
All right, cool. Have a good one.
Later.
See ya.